Baya, for the professional organization they have blessed us with. And this is very important in the remarkable results that we've achieved in these peace summits, both in Abu Dhabi and in Nouakchott. This success is also the fruit of the opportunity and relevance of the great men who decided upon the titles of the forum: traditional learning in Africa, knowledge and peace. The choice of these topics reminds us the historic role of institutions in the African educational system and as a vector of social cohesion, growth and development. It is high time also to thank Mauritanian authorities and to commend the recent inscription of the Mahadra of Mauritania on the representative list of the immaterial cultural heritage of UNESCO. This Mahadra is a desert university, yet secular but always dynamic, and is the pride of traditional teachings of Africa, being one of its more accomplished models. In order to know it well, you need to get acquainted with Mahdari graduates from these knowledge and life schools. I personally met two of these of exceptional value here in Mauritania. The first and late Mukhtar al-Udba was one of my dearest friends. I have shared lots of critical responsibilities with that person at decisive times of the lives of our Ummah, and also his function of General Secretary of ICO, and Deputy Secretary General. By his legendary erudition, authority and natural charisma, Dr. Ilba marked his time and left to posterity an immortal work paved with precious writings, amongst which a translation of the Quran into French, as well as many disciples filled with his science and knowledge. He left us only 1 year ago, and there is no more appropriate framework to recall his memory and to pay homage to his life and his accomplishments than here in the Summit of Traditional Schools, who is always have proclaimed a member of. We hope that God will bless him with eternal paradise. Dear Chair, the second Mahdari is none other than our dear Imam, the famous Sheikh Abdullah Ben Baya. May Allah give him a long life. I met Sheikh Ben Baya in the first moment of my mandate at ICO in Jeddah in '89, and very quickly we met. It could not be in any other way. He had an exceptional aura. He's a well-known professor of university and traditional knowledge, allying a vast and deep knowledge of the most acute disciplines to the clear vision of a very vivid mindset and perfectly assimilating any contemporary challenges. This person has research works and also lots of publications about diaspora throughout the world, and have become a reference in terms of works for all Muslims for Europe and in Americas. Beyond this intense academic and scientific activity, Sheikh Ben Baya endeavored for an ideal and a vision for his Islamic Ummah and more generally for the whole of humankind. This is how, along all the initiatives he has developed to struggle against Islamophobia, which was at his highest moments in the Western world, he pruned tolerance and acceptation of differences in order to forge the conditions for the living together. And namely, he was part of the Muslim delegation who went to the Vatican in 1994, a delegation conducted by the General Secretary of Arabia at the time, Dr. Abdel Mansour. This vacation, Mr. Benbaya, was always yours with the success that we know, and the least is not this platform, which has become now the famous crossroads for the future of peace in Africa and the world, which is a global concern. And you bear witness of the African Union's declaration of the Nouakchott Union in the second conference for peace in Africa as a reference document for the African vision of the future of peace. May God bless you with a long life. Dear Chair, which African traditional school can forge such men and mindsets? There is nothing surprising that we have these schools. What is the secret? In a very famous work called Education in Africa, a famous African and a great specialist of education, my co-citizen Abdul Mumuni, engineer and teacher in solar research, has delivered us what he thinks of this education. He says, and I quote, "In its general conception, education of tradition in Africa never separates education from instruction or teaching. It also embraces the training of the mindset, development of physical aptitudes, acquisition of moral qualities considered as inseparable to the attributes of the qualities of a man, the acquisition of knowledge, as well as the necessary techniques for any man to take an active part to social life under its different aspects." Traditional education, of course, everybody has mentioned it under different formats, and I'd like to now tell you about this education in Niger. In Niger, Quranic schools are largely widespread, and it's a very ancient presence. They are the very first educational institutions in the country. Indeed, their creation gets back to the penetration of Islam in the region in the 7th century. These schools are deeply rooted everywhere in the country, and they benefit from a tremendous prestige on behalf of the population. They keep on draining an important number of children, teenagers, and adults in the search of knowledge. The system of traditional schools is not opposed to the formal system, insofar that 35% of children or students at Quranic schools also attend classic kinds of schools. Of course, we have mentioned lots of other forms of traditional schools. We've mentioned Ativa Mahadra here in Mauritania, Khalawi in Sudan, Daara in Senegal. Let us add to these what we call the Makaranta in Niger. The Makaranta term means reading in Hausa. It is used in Nigeria, and even in other countries using Hausa such as Cameroon, Ghana, Chad, etc. In sub-Saharan Africa, and most particularly in Saharan countries, the phenomenon underwent a vivid expansion at the end of the 19th century. According to the latest inquiries, one considers the number of Quranic schools in Niger around 65,000, with a total count of pupils around 850,000. These schools use traditional methods in all teaching systems. They welcome children from the age of 3.5 and adults of all genders and ages. The Quranic school is an individual institution. It has the following characteristics. Subscriptions are free and can be done at any moment. The program essentially is based on the memorization of the verses of the Holy Quran. This class can take place at any time, in any place, in a shelter, in a civil or a private venue, in open air. Learners can be sitting on the ground or on the handicraft seats. Each learner may progress at his own pace, according to his own aptitudes and the time he has to study. The main characteristic of these schools is the austerity of the lifestyle and tedious work. Indeed, the state and the community do not support these institutions, and they do not take into consideration their contribution for the establishment of statistics of education. Other characteristics are the absence of the requirements for professional or vocational training for candidates who are Quranic masters. And let's remind you that the question of precarity of the living conditions and the operation of these Quranic schools is a reproach to them, because they are supposedly taking the time of the students and they practice begging. Indeed, some of the teachers, called the marabu, use children to beg and to cover their financial needs. Another aspect of the life of Quranic schools is the bodily punishments imposed to the learners. It is extremely harsh. These traditional schools are well implanted in Niger, and their sustainability is no longer to be demonstrated, since in spite of the existence of these schools, modern schools, French, Arabic schools, traditional schools still keep on their lonely track. And this is due to several factors. There's a first element, which is the renovation of Quranic schools. Indeed, it is an aspect of the project to support the Arab-French project supported by the Islamic Bank. It's been launched 3 years ago, and it experimented renovation on 10 Quranic schools. These renovated schools in the system now play an important role within the population. The development of Quranic learning is also part and parcel of the global policy of the National Poverty Reduction Strategy, a policy aiming to achieve objectives of education for all by an acceleration of other forms of education. The choice of the 10 experimental Quranic schools was done on the grounds of selective criteria, according to Quranic schools meeting the standards that they have listed and taking into consideration the national configuration. Each Quranic school is regulated by a commitment co-signed by the co-founder and the administration. I'm talking about the experimental schools. After their renovation, there's a pedagogical support project for these Quranic schools. It's funded by a German NGO. They started in some regions of Niger and have spread to other countries. It regards the intervention in this project of teaching programs, the support of learners, and provision of book manuals in the national language. There's also the support of the Center of Studies for International Cooperation. The intervention of this center was more intense in two regions of Niger, three regions, sorry. And this intervention could support several Quranic schools and had a positive impact on these under all aspects. And finally, there's a project to support the Makaranta. This is a project that is part of the READ project funded by the World Bank. It is a project that impacts all the regions of Niger. The first phase concerns 50 Quranic schools, and the second will also concern 50 other schools. The sustainability of these schools is at least ensured whenever we know the interest of the parents towards that kind of teaching. The state and partners have started being interested in these schools because they can help us overcome many difficulties. Africa, more than ever, needs these schools, the original schools, and the role that they play in the education, instruction, and preservation of values and tradition. Alternative solutions must be found to guarantee the sustainability of these schools. The Waqf, due to its vocation of an instrument of social Islamic finance, enabling to organize solidarity and to mobilize public and private resources, is extremely indicated to be the first lever on which we should play. What can be the contribution of our conference? Well, I believe that we can make the following recommendation. First of all, encourage the creation of Qarf institutions wherever they do not exist with the support of the Islamic Development Bank, which action in the field is to be commended. Second, recommend the systematic creation for each Waqf's existing institution to provide support to traditional teaching establishments, and then commit or command states, ask them to create a tax to the benefit of the Waqf's fund to support these traditional schools, and the like of some taxes created in some countries to the benefit of the Ministry of the Youth and Sports. Then elaborate and implement a permanent strategy of advocacy and communication in order to mobilize sufficient resources to ensure the sustainability of these traditional schools. I should like to seize this opportunity to convey the encouragements of the new authorities of Niger for the full success of your conference. And I'd like to thank you for your kind attention. May the peace be upon you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Hamid Ben Barid, for this great input, this very comprehensive delivery. Thank you very much. Hope that we will take your input into consideration. We are being informed that we have 2 absentees, 2 missing people among the speakers, and I give the floor to His Excellency Sheikh Amin Sarah from Burkina Faso. The floor to the next speaker, Dr. Farangudi, Philbert Farangudi. He is a member of the Research Institute for Development in Paris. His topic is traditional education and the issue of sustainability. Gentlemen, you have the floor. Praise be the Lord, peace and prayers upon the Prophet, his family and his companion. Thank you to the organizers and thank you for giving me the floor. I would like to talk about traditional education and sustainability in Africa. My delivery will be around the funding of the Arabic and Islamic education, Arabo-Islamic model of education developed in the 90s. We are going to cover all practices with which international and local stakeholders are mobilizing funding and financial resources to provide education. It's not only about money transfer, but much more about an interaction and social integration around the regulations of stakeholders. My delivery will be organized in 3 points. First of all, I will talk about the Mabroka and its historical environment, then the social environment, and then the funding model and the findings that we should draw. With no further ado, I would like to tell you that the socio-historical policy of Chad is tied with the Islamic education. Following the independence, most of the graduated have been marginalized. Those graduated had to engage in armed resistance to consecrate and to celebrate Arabic language. Many consequences divided traditional and formal education between Arabic and French, and the situation of the graduated French is mainly dominating the education environment. This is the environment where the Mabroka has emerged. In the 90s, the first Mabroka was opened by Sheikh Abdul Baraka, a religious scholar coming from the Sultanate of Dambagé, one of the 3 Islamic states in Chad before colonization. This Mabroka is located in the south, aiming to provide common understanding and tolerance following a civil war provoking the collapse of the national cohesion. Chad was dividing the north and the south, Muslims and Christians, pastors and cattle breeders, French language and Arabic language. Mabroka has built bridges between social classes and has managed to increase the reputation of Chad and the sub-region in Africa. Mabroka is not only an Arabo-Islamic education system, it's a laboratory for tolerance and common understanding, promoting a peaceful Islam, being a solid and firm obstacle against fundamentalism. Mabroka is based on a development model. 3 steps are designing the implementation of the Mabroka and the financial funding. First and foremost, this is a social legitimacy with 5 key stakeholders. The implementation in 91 of a Quranic schools, a hospital in 2005, and a radio station in 2010. Health services are provided for Muslim and non-Muslim area. The radio is broadcasting shows around religious tolerance and social cohesion. It's a strong channel to raise the awareness used by the NGO to put forward awareness messages in education and health. The education project of Mabroka has known a surge in the field of environment and education. 2,600 teachers being taught French, Arabic, and computer sciences. Those students are talking both languages, French and Arabic. The third step of the implementation of the funding environment is the moral authority process. Consequently, Mabroka is very active in peace building in the local areas and by promoting a religious dialogue and to implement the National Celebration Day of a Peaceful Cohabitation implemented 10 years ago. Mabrouka is an institution to disseminate Islam in the south of Chad and in Central Africa with religious missions and caravans which are being disseminated in the region. Mabrouka is working on the national coherence and reconciliation. What are the lessons learned from Al-Mabrouka? First and foremost, the achievements of Mabrouka is about the community coherence. From a small village in 90, it's about to become a city with 15,000 inhabitants. All people living in this Quranic village are teachers. The mosque is the first bank and the first funding institution in order to implement tangible achievements and projects. Mabrouka, in order to perform its sustainability, understands that it should not rely on the community, but should be much more independent in order to empower its action. Last point, how to rethink and to design the Arabo-Islamic funding in front of the global challenges. First, we need to foster the current mechanisms by implementing schools and institutions, providing grants and scholarships, and promoting teaching. These mechanisms are unfortunately limited, following the dependence on the transnational assistance, the interdependence between communities, the lack of stability of the funding, hindering the needs of the communities which are evolving steadily. Some findings I would like to suggest are based on 5 points. First, demystify the Arabo-Islamic funding. In most Arabic Islamic countries in Africa, it's a very touchy and tricky topic when we're talking about Arabo-Islamic funding. This is creating a lot of tensions, and this is something which is limiting the capacities of fundings from local, regional, and national level. Secondly, is about unifying the Arabo-Islamic governance, which is very diverse in Africa. The lack of governance may create some geographic inequalities. National and international partnerships by creating a dialogue framework between states. The first speaker mentioned that so far we don't have this framework. This framework would be about fostering resources and experience sharing, developing this partnership. From a local standpoint, we need to explore all the funding opportunities provided by internet and the digital environment. Fourth, we need to foster specific funds for the Arabic Islamic institutions. We need to add a management institution to guarantee financial stability on the long term. And fifth point, last but not least, this is about addressing the challenge of vocational training by providing the learners and students to get involved in the job market. Thank you. Please let me give the floor now to the next speaker. Dr. Ahmed Mislamani from Egypt. He's a journalist and director of Egyptian Center for Strategic Research, addressing the issue of traditional education and the challenge of transparency and sustainability. You have the floor, Your Excellency, Dr. Ahmed Mislamani. In the name of God, the grateful and the merciful. Good morning. God bless you. Thanks to the Abu Dhabi Forum for Peace and the African Conference for Peace. Your Excellency, I will need 5 minutes to provide my delivery, and I will start by the first important strategic point. From a strategic point of view, please let me tell you that people would like to limit Islam to Al-Zawiyah with a very reductionist vision, trying to dismantle Islamic principles. Those assumptions are done following what is done by the Taliban, Al-Qaeda, and the ISIS. It's a reductionist vision which is putting in jeopardy the Islamic world. The ancestral education has always been a fortress against extremism and fundamentalisms. Quranic schools in Egypt have always managed to look for peace with everything which has been implemented other than Quranic schools, libraries. Some of those libraries have tried to use a political use of Islam. Now that some extremist movements are trying to address the students in universities, now they are trying to recruit them from the primary school and secondary school, while in the past they were trying to address them in higher education. One book has been published about Al-Qaeda. It is a reading of 33 strategies. 33 strategies is the title. Saif al-Adel has written this paper by calling it 33 free readings of this strategy. He is calling for a lot of creativity to try to think out of the box to address all the terrorist actions which are perpetrated in order to guarantee peace and stability for Muslims, trying to think outside of the box, talking about health, education, housing in Muslim societies, but to try to create an emotional surge in order to fight against wars and terrorist actions which are only putting in jeopardy the Muslim Ummah. Regarding the ancestral education, Egypt has always managed to build a balance between mosque and modernity. How to challenge the West, how to make sure that ancestral education would be an inspiration not only for the religious environment but for everything related to the public environment. Please let me tell you something about Sheikh Al-Attar. He used to be a sheikh within University Al-Azhar 200 years ago when Napoleon Bonaparte came to Egypt. Al-Attar had been impressed by the scientific achievements of the French campaign against Egypt to open Egypt. What Al-Attar did was to learn French, to understand French literature, to understand French technology, to try to challenge France. Muhammad Ali Pasha, who ruled Egypt at that time, suggested to start to send delegations in France, offering him to be part of the Egyptian delegation traveling to Paris. That's where he produced his very important paper regarding his journey to Paris. He asked the Egyptian delegations to be sent to Paris. That's why modernity does not only depend on Sheikh Muhammad Ali, but on Al-Hassan Al-Attar from University Al-Azhar, regarding the ancestral and ancient education, asking for this Egyptian delegation to travel to France. Claude Beck, a great practitioner, regarding while providing a lecture on microsurgery, when Egyptian students were about to have discrepancies with Claude Beck, he was about to open a dead body during a medicine lecture.
مع هذه الجثة وجواز
Sheikh Al-Attar gave the instruction to Egyptian students to study the desiccation of dead bodies in order to understand the human anatomy. It is very important to keep in mind and to try to differentiate between what we need to praise regarding what the West is all about and what we need to preserve from the West in order to keep our identity and our values. We need to have enough awareness to understand what is positive for us and what is negative for us regarding the West. The introduction of Ibn Khaldun about the balance between modernity and genuity has decided to happen on the West without embracing all the Western values, but to try to find the right identity values, which is of great importance for the traditional education that will be supported and sponsored by different means and resources in order to keep domestic cohesion. Consequently, this ancestral education should be embracing this genuity. This authenticity states can be deconstructed from inside. It's not only about outside threats. The ancestral education has always been a shelter to fight against the lack of cohesion, which have put in jeopardy the Islamic nation. In the name of God, the grateful and the merciful. Praise be the Lord, the Almighty. Assalamu alaikum, peace be upon you. Dear attendees, please let me give you my input regarding the importance of al-waqfs regarding traditional education. First and foremost, please let me express my gratitude and the pride of Mauritania, Sheikh Abdullah bin Baya, founder of the Abu Dhabi Forum for Peace. Please let me thank moderator, who is one of the founding father of our dear homeland. This is the first time I meet him, and it's a great honor for me. Talking about WAFs and its importance regarding the traditional education resilience is about talking about its importance for the most vulnerable communities in the social cohesion. It's a very important theme in this multidimensional crisis environment. It's about talking about resources sharing. When we are focusing on zakat, we realize that Islam is great, giving a major importance to stability to society in all its classes. It's a great leverage for its stability and cohesion by strengthening the relation between individuals for peaceful cohabitation. This target can be done only by embracing the values and principles of this great religion, asking for principles and trying to get away from violence and a lack of understanding. The speaker is reading now verses of the Quran. By this timely contribution that will be enriched by your contribution, I would like to give you 4 points. Definition of the waqfs, importance of the waqfs, the economic solidarity in Islam. With no further ado regarding the different waqfs is a flagship of the Islamic Ummah. The interest of Ummah is about the fact that Sharia is based on interest and protection against the discrepancies. Importance of waqfs for the sustainability of religion. Given the international and national challenges, most of the Islamic states are facing economic and financial challenges, asking for mobilizing many resources like the al-waqfs for traditional education in order to address the resilience of those challenges. Al-waqfs is an aid for development in Islam and is a very important point for solidarity. Waqfs is contributing to resilience and individual and people welfare. That's why we need to organize a awareness campaign on al-waqfs. The support and the aid is a value which is recommended by Islam. Those principles are embracing sharing principle, affection and love between believers. As it is mentioned like the genuine hadith. The importance of waqfs is highlighted in different fields. Economic solidarity. This is one of the components based on the Islamic economy. Islam rejects differences, avoiding to have people living in prosperity and other communities living in poverty and vulnerability. The wealthiest should dedicate part of their wealth to the most vulnerable communities. The Prophet, peace be upon him, was praising the economic solidarity as quoted in Imam al-Bukhari al-Hadith. Wealth and resources in Islam. The wealth abundance is of great importance. That's why Allah has put forward the jihad, solidarity sources in Islam. Islam insists on generosity. That's why Islam has decided to provide economic solidarity, to offer different sources of solidarity in order to protect the most vulnerable communities. Al-Zakat, Al-Zakat al-Fitr, Al-Kafarat, and so on. Islam aims for the individual to give perspective to the society and the individuals for now and for the future based on a rational version. Experts are being asked to implement this environment about WAFs, the economic impact of al-WAFs for a real advocacy in favor of the traditional education for its sustainability. Thank you for your attention. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to ask the audience to let me introduce the new Mauritanian school for its first year. The new Mauritanian school wants to be a synthesis between traditional teaching, traditional education, and modern education. This is what we are trying to implement. This is the first year of this school called New Republican School. Please let me give you a couple of points, remind you a couple of points. In Islamic societies, traditional education is a mix between teaching, between family customs and the Sharia teaching. Customs are created within families by socializing their children, by recognizing the other, creating a balance between interests and children behaviors, by the different practices within harmony and solidarity to seek for a peaceful life. Indeed, without peace, nothing is achievable. Traditional education based on al-Sharia broaden and strengthen the family tradition. Consequently, it ensures the sustainability of the traditional education by acknowledging the tangible and intangible social acceptance. However, but when a foreign aggression is putting in jeopardy the traditional institution, chaos is threatening coherence and legitimacy. Consequently, the sustainability of the environment is put in jeopardy. What should we do? I think we need to come back following the colonial period to the Mauritanian authenticity, the African authenticity. How can we achieve this point? By reinventing and redesigning an educational environment, a right balance between the traditional education and modern education. Indeed, this is an educational environment that needs to be shaped, a new pedagogy. This synthesis was the main purpose of the new Mauritanian school created by the new school 2023-03. To do so, we have engaged in many grassroots consultations from a local, regional, and national standpoint in order to collect the requests of all the population about the new Republican school. To do so, we needed to re-embrace our customs by teaching the national language, allowing the student to rediscover the first element of knowledge in his mother tongue. Establishing the official language as Arabic, as the unification language for communication. In addition to local dialects, which is being taught in primary school. This new school should take into consideration, is taking into consideration the many principles of our holy religion, should take into consideration equity and national coherence, and fostering science and technology. Taking into consideration the values promoting dialogue, compromise, peace building by embracing the international agreements and human rights, focusing on these values. Indeed, we're talking about goodwill that should be achieved with a strong political will. We will need resources, a realistic pedagogy by training trainers and teachers, and with a tangible and efficient governance. This is the core of the education system that Mauritania wants to implement. On a long-term basis, the purpose is to gather traditional school and modern school with options and common curricula. This is what I wanted to present as the new school for Mauritania. Please allow me to wrap up my delivery. I would like to pay a tribute to the great peace soldier in Africa and in the world, the wise Sheikh Abdullah Boli, who, with his organization, gathers the great scholars and political leaders from Africa to research, investigate human values, being able to implement a sustainable peace here and elsewhere. This is what I wanted to put forward. And thank you very much for your attention.
If there are no further speakers, let's conclude this session. Thank you very much.
السلام عليكم.
Good morning. Please remain seated, since we are going to very soon start session number 2.
الإسلام سنة عضو مجلس كبار العلماء.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين.
In the name of God, the graceful and the merciful, glory to God. This session is a blessed session, learning about ancestral teaching and their impact on the settlement and support of peace. I'm going to try to set a landscape with a short glimpse of the situation that I'd like to share with you. The Holy Book, in many of its extracts, invites the faithful not to follow Satan's pathways, because they create wars, dissensions, divisions, and God hopes that humans will find, on the contrary, peace, and that a good understanding and relationships will be amongst our people. We have to bear the flame of peace, and this is one of the roles of the wise man. Carrying the torch of peace is just like carrying a torch for integrity and for good. It is something that is our duty. It is our mission to fulfill it according to what is said in the scriptures. It is up to you to bear this torch of peace. Peace as an attitude and human behavior is part and parcel of a good education. This is the kind of education that we should give to our children from the earliest age, as mentioned in several scriptures and poetries of our culture. And this is something that is part of all the values related to the support, mutual aid, solidarity, fraternity amongst Muslims and non-Muslims. And this is where the major pillar articulates. And this session started by the intervention of Dr. Hafid El-Shaqiq from Mali, whom unfortunately now is absent, and Dr. Meg is going to speak on his behalf. The floor is yours, sir. For a brief presentation, we are all ears. In the name of God, the most graceful, the most merciful. In the beginning of this intervention, I would first like to convey my deepest thanks towards the organizers of this conference, the sponsors. Thanks for having organized this event of utmost importance. Since we do not have much time today, I'm going to try and proceed to the reading of my intervention. The Arab Islamic Teaching School in Mali. I'm going to tell you about traditional teaching and part of modern education as well. I'm going to tackle 3 points. Essentially, introduction, In my introduction, a chapter is dedicated to the importance of the Arabic the Arabic language in Africa. The second point is the Arab Islamic teachings. Third point, I dedicated to the education and its importance to be a vector of peace and stability. This is my third point. And I should not like to get into the very small technicalities of these, but rather try and explain a bit further on the third point, since I believe it is the most important one. So let me spare you the details and cut to the chase. I guess that you all know of the Empire of Ghana. During the year 60 of Hijra, there was a Sankore University at the time, and it was providing teachings in competition with the Qayrawan University in Cairo at the time. And this university used to host Western African students. The barriers arisen by colonizers on the way of traditional education, and I forgot to tell you about the roles of Almoravites as to the broadcasting and circulation of knowledge in the region of Africa. There are very important events. First, the scientific missions in Morocco and Gulf countries, the recognition and homologation of certificates and degrees granted by Arabic institutions, the recognition of traditional education in Mali as a formal way of teaching. The rebirth of these traditional educational systems in Mali have, in fact, now been supported by some institutions such as universities where there are third cycle PhD studies, and we also are blessed by peace now of some regions in Mali. And in order to build a Pacific society, you need to have the possibility to work on the conduct of citizens, the youngest, women, in order to guarantee a pleasant climate in the realm of society for the sake of peace and the living together. Let's get rid of fear and instability. Let us forge the conditions for peace nationally, regionally, and internationally. Education has always played a very important role for the support of peace. Even if sometimes people would have remarks as to university education. The shuyukh played a very important role, and any time there was a conflict, these played a very important role to try and settle such disagreements. And shuyukh used to travel to teach the principles of peace to people. They have struggled against ignorance and illiteracy. Thank you very much. Thank you, Dr. Abel Qader Mega. Thank you very much. You have talked about traditional education in Mali, and you placed it within its civilizational context. Thank you very much. Next speaker, please. Dr. Abu Bakr Haj from Mauritania. He's not here. Let's move on to the next speaker. Sheikh Mohammed Fadel Mohammed Al-Yamin, former minister, wise man who needs no introductions. The floor is yours, sir. In the name of God, the most graceful and merciful, may the peace be on the Prophet and his companions. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thanks for having collaborated to the organization of this encounter. The speaker is now quoting from the Quran, and it's a verse telling us about the duty to learn in order to fulfill our humanly duties. Now I'm going to tell you about the values of traditional education. Apprenticeship is a duty, and God has sent the book to his messenger for humankind to make the difference between good and evil. And he's told us to learn the contents of the book and the exegesis, the explanation of the book and the life of the Prophet. And God has shown and demonstrated his existence throughout lots of proofs. He asked us to contemplate his creation. The speaker is now quoting from the Quran concerning the creation. Secondly, sacred books. 3, the interpretation of such books by prophets. And there are also the miracles of God, such as the history of the Prophet. The speaker is now quoting verses concerning the miracles of the people of Saleh. There's also Pharaoh and Moses. Pharaoh saw a miracle with his own eyes. The pilgrim's stick has opened the seas, as well as the Christians saw the miracles of Jesus. And he also mentions the table of the law. He's mentioning the verses of the Quran to describe miracles There's also the miracle of Noah's miracle, the big flood, and the speaker is quoting verses related to the flood, as well as the 7 plagues of Egypt. And now the speaker is reading about the 7 plagues of Egypt, as well as Abraham, who survived from the fire. The speaker is now quoting verses from the Quran. Again, prophets have had to cope with extreme situations. And there's also the story of Jacob with his son, Yusuf, whom he lost, and before he recuperated him, the son of Jacob, the son of Abraham. There's also the kingdom of David. The speaker again quoting from the Quran concerning Prophet David. The speaker is now quoting verses from the Quran. Our Prophet has undergone similar situations. The creation of our world is a proof that confirms the existence of God, as well as the many miracles, enabling the people to have tangible proof. Some prophets suffered in order to prove to people the truth. God said to the whole of humankind that he created good and evil in order to challenge them. I have tried to quote these verses from Quran to prove that traditional education is very important. One cannot replace it by modern education because this is a system that is totally intangible. We have had this debate in the 70s after the independence. It was the crisis of traditional education. And personally, I have been working on mathematical and natural sciences manuals to integrate them into the traditional educational system. And this is how I realized that traditional education, even if it is complicated, cannot be substituted by modern education, even if it's also something quite important. I have tried to reconcile both systems, as said by Sheikh Malainin. One needs to reconcile both educational systems. People prefer degrees modern institutions, yet one needs to make a great effort to maintain education. This educational tradition is absolutely necessary. This is how I decided to prepare publications concerning the knowledge related to traditional education. I also tried to reorganize the studies program of the traditional system, the Maliki right. Please, we do not have much time left. I'm asking you to conclude. I wrote 17 circulars concerning traditional education. Excuse me, sir, could you conclude? I also summarized 14 books related to the tradition of the Prophet. I am obliged to interrupt you because you haven't respected the time that's been given to you. I can't give you 20 minutes. I'm very sorry, but I can't. Dr. Khalisana, a member of the Higher Islamic Council of Burkina Faso.
In the name of God, the graceful and the merciful, praise be the Lord, the Almighty. Peace and prayers upon the Prophet, his family, his companions. Dear attendees, dear guests, Your Excellencies, please let me try to give you a piece of poetry that I am going to quote, because we do consider that your contribution in science is enlightening the great challenges of our era. This is a sort of tribute added to our positive contribution, the organization of this Holy Land to celebrate peace in Africa. It's a free translation of this piece of poetry, a poetry about the wealth, the science, the peace in Africa. Poetry about wisdom which has characterized this great and wonderful continent which is Africa. Quranic schools, retreats, those gatherings are enlightening the stars in the sky. Africa the believing Africa, the great Africa, enlightening the whole world, Africa where believers are trying to be blessed by God the Almighty. Africa is a continent full of glory. Resilient and long-lasting Africa. This Africa will defeat and will challenge any kind of attempt to defeat this great continent. Green Africa, Holy Land of Africa. God bless Africa. God bless scholars of this continent. Ladies and gentlemen, this topic on which we are working is a very tricky issue. Please let me give you my humble input regarding this topic. It exists two parts in my input. First and foremost, the importance of zakat. Then the role of zakat to guarantee the sustainability and the resilience of the ancient education. With the help of God, regarding the importance of zakat, ladies and gentlemen, zakat is one of the very important principles. It is the cornerstone of Africa, one of the cornerstones of Islam. People performing zakat are praised and are blessed by Allah. There is no society and a healthy life without performing zakat. Zakat is a major pillar in Islam. As it is quoted in Quran and Hadith, zakat is as important as prayer. Since zakat is supposed to enlighten the values of solidarity and assistance, to foster brotherhood, and to assist the most vulnerable one to get closer to the Almighty. This is how zakat is supposed to improve the society relations within the communities. Unfortunately, we may see that many believers perform their prayers in due course. However, they would not necessarily perform zakat that they should perform to the most vulnerable. For some of them, it's a principle that existed at prophets, during prophets' era. Zakat is a duty stated and quoted by the Almighty. Abu Bakr al-Sadiq and other prophets' companions have all highlighted the importance of zakat. Abu Bakr as-Siddiq had threatened to assassinate the ones who considered that zakat was not as important as prayer, as praying. Zakat enables to enrich the capital and the properties given to the most wealthy. It's also a way of purification to help the believers to get closer to the Almighty. It's a way of forgiving your sins. Abi al-Huyera in one of his hadith quote that zakat is something that you need to perform and that you need to give to the one who deserves it. One companion of the Prophet took food that he put in his mouth and he was ordered to get it out because it would not belong to him. It was a zakat that he had to give to the one who deserved it. We need to give revival to our mahadra, our Quranic institutions, our traditional education spaces, helping us to have many scholars and scientists providing a wonderful input to the Islamic culture. Thank you very much for your attention. Thank you, Your Excellency. Dr. Kharsana. Thank you, Dr. Kharsana, for this great input and for the great piece of poetry that you have delivered. Thank you, Doctor. The floor to the second speaker. Dr. Abdelkader Idris is a young teacher at the University of Nouakchott, graduated PhD in Islamic Studies. Assalamu alaikum, peace be upon you. I'm here to introduce scientific research in collaboration with my colleague Ahmed Mohamed Van. This research is about original traditional values in the University of Nouakchott. We are running a bit short of time. It's a research about traditional education like Mahadra in Mauritania and its role in developing skills in students. We have asked questions, important questions, to understand the role played by the Mahadra on developing the traditional education. We wanted to know if we have values and if there is a positive impact of the Mahadra on the next students of university. We have asked questions regarding the Mahadra value, methods of Mahadra teaching, Mahadra participating to the intellectual mindset of next students in university. Following close investigation and research on literature about Mahadra and the development of universities, we have designed a survey, a research survey, and this research survey has given us different research assumptions, a quantitative survey and a deductive survey. And the first assumption was Mahadra is tied with the peace values in society. We have worked upon this assumption with scientific research. We will try to answer this question. Is the Mahadra is important to forward peace values in society? The second assumption is the Mahadra student is dedicated to conduct religious studies. It's a very important question because when we are attending Mahadra, we're supposed to attend Islamic studies. My colleague in statistics is going to show you that it's wrong. Mahadra students can become doctors, scientists, and other specialties. memorizing the Holy Quran, is it a way to conduct scientific research? We have realized, following the examination of this assumption, when we memorize Holy Quran, we have the capacity of going towards scientific research in medicine, in economy, in mathematics, and others. Mahadra is an efficient mean to memorize Quran. We have realized that most of our sample were people memorizing Quran. They were the best students in the Mahadra. The findings of our research are very clear. The distribution of students per institutions, sample is made of 500 students. We have realized that students were distributed in different departments of Nouakchott, Faculty of Science, Faculty of Economy, Faculty of Techniques, Faculty of Medicines, and the Vocational Institute. The distribution of our sample is made of 51% students, male students, and 49 female students. So there is a full gender equity in this sample, showing that the Mahadra is also absorbing young female. I will give the opportunity to my partner to talk 2 minutes about statistics. He's an expert in statistics to explain what we've done as far as statistics are involved. Peace be upon you. Just to answer the questions elaborated by my colleague regarding our topic, we have asked questions to the students of the different institutions, the University of Nouakchott. We have noticed that 97% of students have attended Mahadra, most of them 2 years in a Mahadra. First assumption is the Mahadra is the right place to forward peace values in society. Our research has shown that 93% of students attending 2 years or even more in Mahadra do think that university is a place to forward peace values. Second assumption is the Mahadra student is dedicated to perform religious studies. We have showed that it is not correct. We have approximately 90% of our sample in Faculty of Science and Faculty of Economy. Third assumption regarding memorizing Quran is it's something fostering students to continue in scientific research. We have showed that 95% of students memorizing Quran wanted to get involved in research studies, in scientific studies, sorry. And next assumption is Mahadra the right place to memorize Al-Quran? We have some important figures showing that it is true. People attending at least 2 years in Al-Mahadra are most of the time the one who can memorize the Holy Quran and can memorize much more hazard. The one attending less than 2 years memorize between less than 14 hazard, showing that to quote Quran and to memorize Quran, you need at least to attend at least 2 years in a Mahadra. Thank you. Thanks for your attention. Thank you, dear brothers. Thank you, dear brothers. You have talked about the importance of Al-Mahadra regarding the education environment. I've been asked to put an end to this session, so I shall call to the end of this session. It's a request from the organizers. We are asked to give the floor to Sheikh Ba. Sheikh Ba, you have the floor. Thank you, Dr. Zan, in the name of God, the graceful and the merciful. Peace be upon the Prophet, his companion and his family. It's a great honor for me to be here with you. This meeting about traditional education in Africa, knowledge and peace. Traditional education and the Mahadara plays a very important role for peace. This is why we need to work together. We need to work together to preserve the Mahadara. Now, the Mahadara is in the list of the intangible patrimony of UNESCO. We are a product of Al-Mahadara, given the fact that we are now in Europe. We have the duty to allow others to discover Al-Mahadara and its principle of peace and tolerance. This is the cornerstone for peace and tolerance and an obstacle against extremism and radicalism. Thank you. Thank you, Sheikh Ahmed Ba, President of the Council of Imams in France. At the end of this session, I would like to express my gratitude to all the speakers, Mohamed Ould-Hamid, Dr. Khalid Sana, Sheikh Ahmed Ba, Dr. Mega, Dr. Abdelkader. As a wrap-up, as a summary, Al-Mahadara and traditional schools have played a very important role. Scholars, ulemas, handling and managing the schools have always managed to handle the principles of those schools, and we need Mahadara principles today. Thank you very much. Peace be upon you.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته. نرجو من الجميع.
Peace be upon you. Please remain be seated. Please remain be seated in the room.
خذ 45 دقيقة ساعة.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
Good morning.
نحن سعداء بهذه الجلسة
We are delighted to be able to gather around this session. So welcome back to the works of this session of the African Conference for Peace. It's a one-of-a-kind event. The organizational committee for this Peace African Conference decided to include on the agenda of the day topical questions that are intrinsically connected to ancestral and traditional knowledge. During this session, we are supported with high-level speakers who endeavor and are active in the field, both ministers and young people. And those who overview the ethical compliance of digital transition, as well as artificial intelligence and how these high-end technologies could favorably contribute to the development of the field of education. So once again, I'd like to thank again Mauritania for generously welcoming this event. It is a beautiful conference, and I'd like to further thank the President for placing this conference under his high patronage. We are here delighted to welcome Abdullah Aloui, the Minister of Digital Transition and Modernization of Administration here in Mauritania. Welcome amongst us, Excellency, in this panel. We also will be joined throughout video conference, His Excellency the Ministry of State for Artificial Intelligence from the United Arab Emirates, as well as His Excellency Sheikh Mahfoud Ben Baya, General Secretary of the Abu Dhabi Forum for Peace. This morning with us also Mrs. Maimouna, who here stands for the youth and for the young. Mrs. Maimouna was granted several awards by several international organizations for the efforts she's been deploying to the support of the youth. And this is how we're going to start, by giving the floor to our esteemed speakers, and further to which we will open the debate to collect any questions or comments that you might have. And we will ask the speakers to respond. Without further ado, let us now start this panel under the heading of Challenges of Ethics between Ancestral Teachings and Artificial Intelligence. Thank you, dear Minister. We invite you to take the floor in this session as the Minister of Digital Transition and the Modernization of the Administration in Mauritania. On behalf of Allah, the Most Graceful and the Merciful, I am glad to be here, and I have the immense honor to be surrounded by eminent shiukhs and ulemas in order to debate on very important subject matters. A topic that has now self-imposed and that deserves debate in the light of the wisdom brought by the ulemas and the shiukhs. In order to enable the room to respond and to give the opportunity to the congressists to respond or to ask questions, I'm going to try and be brief in my presentation. I will limit myself to a number of points, starting with artificial intelligence. AI is one of the facets that Allah gave us to simplify our existence with this capacity to produce, and which should be delegated to robotics and to machines. It is something that has undergone a tremendous leap in quality to reach this AI, which is in fact the capacity of the machine, the IT capacity to process information, large amounts of data to try and extract a modus operandi and the like of what human beings would do with their human brains, with accumulation of experience and simulations of what can be achieved by human beings, hence the concept of intelligence. When we want to write a speech for AI, to be able to write a speech, and due to the fact that we have at our disposal hundreds of thousands of speeches, I am going to here try and explain how this happens and can be done throughout the help of artificial intelligence. Whenever we introduce hundreds of thousands of speeches specifying the subject of the speech, its paragraphs, its scope, as well as several elements composing the speech, you teach the machine to have the skills to process that information and becomes able to write a speech, a well-put speech indeed, around a topic X or Y, and in view of the evolution of algorithms, but also of the programming of machines. There are some softwares that do that, and with their algorithms there's a simulation of similar ideas related to this speech. So using that information, the machine is going to optimize the large amounts of data provided to it, and with the softwares it's equipped with, as well as the algorithm, and this machine can sometimes produce a speech that could rival or become even better than a speech written by a person who will not have necessarily very high skills. Now, with this huge capacity, computers nowadays process large amounts of data. AI nowadays starts triggering a real revolution in the like of the last industrial revolution that generated the mechanization of the agriculture, I will rest my case here. Thank you, Excellence. You were able, in fact, to explain the concept of artificial intelligence and how one may mobilize a machine, optimize it to help humankind and to move forward in the development of this activity. Let's now move on to the United Arab Emirates with Omar Sultan, Minister of State from the Ministry of Digital Transition. His Excellency shall speak to us from Abu Dhabi. Let's seize this opportunity to thank the United Arab Emirates for their continuous support to the Abu Dhabi Forum and the African Conference for Peace. Now, without further ado, we are hearing from His Excellency, the Minister of Artificial Intelligence in Abu Dhabi and of Digital Transition Excellencies, Mr. Mohamed Ghazouani, President of the Republic of Mauritania, dear Presidents, most honorable guests, good morning. I'm delighted to take part to this African Conference for Peace, jointly organized by the United Arab Emirates and the Islamic Mauritanian Republic, an initiative endeavoring to identify the means and try and promote education and uphold the values of peace whilst enlarging the horizons of research and education to better respond to the prerequisites and the needs of our societies. Since 1971, United Arab Emirates have elected several politicians and produced new policies because we realized that the human capital was a pillar of any form of development. Hence, any new policies in order to become mandatory, these systems were funded by 20% of the budget of the state, and this was a clear and wise initiative to promote this kind of learning, putting the stress on that form of traditional education. Mr. El Ahyan relentlessly supported education as the cornerstone of the development process of any country. His Highness bin Rashid Al Maktoum, Prime Minister of the United Arab Emirates, always supported education as being one of the priority sectors, benefiting from large investments, and this is a large project in order to reach some levels of excellence for our youth. The levels of education, as centuries have passed by, have shown that the quest for knowledge, we remember what we found in the hieroglyphs, writings, different sculptures in our past history, and centuries later, literacy and evolution of the languages. We are now undergoing a new revolution based on programming, software, IT, advanced apps, algorithms, standing for a laborious work of a human in order to promote education and reach the summit of research with tremendous technological progress, enabling us to reach the highest spheres of science, where we are still at the premises of our struggle against lots of challenges in order to make education accessible to all, its generalization, trying to put an end to school dropouts, and this is a challenge, and that's why we need to fill the gaps that still hinder and impact the equality of chances. We need to provide technological solutions to cope for this loophole and try to fulfill the expectations and needs of the youngest populations. We need to try and invest as much as we can in our youth. This leadership has put in place an initiative to raise the awareness throughout the initiative of His Highness Sheikh Al Maktoum, and they're endeavoring now for the autonomization of the young. We're offering them several digital options. And we do have a similar initiative in many countries of the world, including Mauritania. Students may benefit from multi-linguistic teaching system, and I would like to invite you all to benefit from these kinds of solutions. A digital school is going to not only enable the equal opportunities in order to cope with the variables and the changes or crisis due to epidemics, natural disasters. Maybe the pandemic of COVID-19 was a great lesson to us, because we saw that many doors were closed, lots of schools got closed throughout the world, with a substitution at the drop of a hat by a virtual form of teaching to replace presential classrooms. So education remains a cornerstone of our culture, the noble values of the living together, tolerance. In the United Arab Emirates, our position is to always prone tolerance, deeply rooted within an Emirati society where over 200 nationalities live side by side, with a good atmosphere and excellent living together situation. So lots of other countries, such as the African Union, Mauritania, and many countries of the world, we need to understand that the priority granted to peace is a must in order to try and offer equal opportunities in terms of education, learning, and we need to forge the future that we must build together for our young and for our societies to be prosperous and to thrive through peace. Once again, let me thank His Excellency Sheikh Ghazouani, President of the Islamic Republic of Mauritania, for placing this conference under his high patronage, and we hope that more efforts will be provided to guarantee a better future to our societies. Thank you, and may peace be upon you.
معالي السيد عمر سلطان العلماء.
Thank you very much.
للذكاء الاصطناعي بدولة
Thank you very much to the Honorable Minister of Digital Transformation from the UAE regarding his great delivery about the importance of education. You have elaborated on the new techniques of teaching. Thank you very much. Now I would like to give the floor to the youngest, or the younger. We have our sister Maimuna Brak. The speaker will speak in English.
هي رئيسة منظمة تسمى هذه المنظمة.
The lady is working for the women's promotion. Maimuna has received many awards from the United Nations in 2023. Maimuna has received the award for peace and reconciliation.
In social media, I'm not sure how many tweets you got this morning, but you use that all the time. So we're discussing here education, artificial intelligence. We're also talking about innovation as well. So how youth could help in partnership with the scholars. We have scholars here from Africa in terms of using all of these technologies that we have to advance education.
D'accord, merci beaucoup, professeur.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for giving me the opportunity. Let me tell you that when we're talking about artificial intelligence, it is something which is completely irrelevant. Why do I think that it is irrelevant? Over the past 4 years, I have been in touch with the field in Burkina Faso. I have lived with families that had to escape from areas to flee from insecurity. And I have seen these families to live in some very vulnerable conditions. When I'm talking about a very vulnerable situation, extreme precarity, only having food and water is difficult. I have started to act because it has created in me a feeling of emergency. And when I started to act, I have seen children dying of disease, of very small and tiny diseases, like constipation, due to lack of financial resources from their parents. I have seen women dying in pregnancy because of a lack of health care. I have seen children joining school, being removed from school, and then being sent to the capital, Ouagadougou, where I find them back in some very difficult situation, begging. I have decided to act. My actions have been well acknowledged by the United Nations when I received the award of Young Activists for Peace, and I decided to use this award to implement the Foundation Mama Sahelian for Peace and Solidarity, acting for dignity for those women and children who have no future whatsoever. I have a question that I would like to deliver to this assembly. Is the artificial intelligence has the power to guarantee 1 meal per day for each children living in a very vulnerable situation in the world? Is artificial intelligence has the power, health care while she's pregnant? Is artificial intelligence can stop me, can help me to sanitize water in my homeland? I don't know. I do not work with artificial intelligence because my realities are completely disconnected from what I'm hearing here. So what I wanted here is to talk from the bottom of my heart to all who are here in this assembly. You need to watch and observe what is going on the ground. Somewhere, people each day are wondering what they are going to give to their children to eat. Children are dropping out of schools each Friday to beg because they want to help their mothers. We need to talk about those issues. We need to get out of this very luxurious room and to go down on the field. This is what is going to help us how to direct our energy. I have written a book titled Some Pages About an Activist. In this book, I describe the very difficult reality of women and children. Please have a look at this book. And today, my call is a call upon action. And by the way, I would like to tell to the elders over here, please trust the youth. Trust the youth, please. We say that if the youth knew and if the elders could, it's a French saying, quote unquote, you know that I have energy, I have time, and I have the desire to serve. Please watch this. Please accept to help us. So together we can find solutions. This is my message this morning. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Passionate speech, right? Maimuna, you appeal to the scholars. You also offered your ability as a youth. You also said that you do have the time and the ability to listen to the scholars, to get their wisdom, the wisdom from the scholars, so that they can help the youth also. You already answered my question. You want to get the wisdoms and the guidance from the scholars, and the youth could continue to carry on their work. So really, your call, your appeal is really well received. Now, I want to go to you, Your Excellency, Sheikh Al-Mahfouz bin Daya. Your Excellency, you are the Secretary General for Abu Dhabi Forum for Peace. ونحن نعلم سعادة
Dear Secretary General, you have the floor. I know that you have put a lot of efforts in the field of artificial intelligence. You are working with experts on artificial intelligence. You are working on ethics and artificial intelligence. You have the floor, gentlemen, to tell us something about artificial intelligence and ethics. In the name of God, the grateful and the merciful, dear attendees. I'm not used to talk about a topic I do not fully understand. I have always tried to gather experts around the same table. It's not easy, but it's feasible. When the mission is about closing the gap between people, we are addressing different fields. I have worked to gather people to fight against extremism. We have worked to defend some principles in the UAE. We have leaders and officials working for a more prosperous future. We have created a ministry for artificial intelligence within the University Mohammed bin Zayed for artificial intelligence. Our leader, Mohammed bin Zayed, head of state, has said, quote, after creating a university specialized in artificial intelligence, we have made a big leap forward to put technology in the heart of development and to open the way to future and to reach new landscapes, and in order to build bridges between experts, scholars, leaders, and this mission is upon us, unquote. In the UAE, this is a mission that we want to embrace, as it should be embraced in Africa. Ulema are not used to accept everything which is new. This is why we want to explain what artificial intelligence is all about. Fellow citizens are accusing religions to fight against development and progress. That's why I have tried to build bridges between reality and modern technology. A British expert once told me, mankind, after discovering fire, this mankind has never discovered anything else than artificial intelligence. I have always tried to give to my country, Mauritania, the most advanced ideas. 15 years ago, I have adopted a telemedicine system. I have raised $15 million. I have prepared everything related to this application. Unfortunately, the bureaucracy at that time made my life difficult, and another country has benefited from this project. Now this country is much developed in the field of medicine, and they even have some remote consulting system. Now I'm going to do the same, and I'm going to talk about something else with my dear brother, the Honorable Minister. I would like to go behind the bureaucracy obstacles. Thank you. Thank you very much. Our group has participated in the Rome meeting. We have called upon a control of artificial intelligence. We have tried to prepare and to implement a framework to handle everything related to ethics and artificial intelligence. We have traveled to Great Britain. We gathered with the ministry, some discrepancies between scientists and ulemas, and they asked me to close the gap between the different stakeholders of this commission. Please, is much more interesting than AI in negative environment. Peace is better than war. Love is better than hate. Thank you, dear General Secretary. You have talked about different points, but I will highlight only 3 of them. I'm not sure if you have a direct question. I'll come back to you in a minute. You need the views of the ulemas to use AI. You have asked the ulemas to step in about the remote telemedical consultation. We need $100 million to use telemedicine. I remember the Rome Initiative. His Excellency, the Pope and the Sheikh talked about this topic. My commission traveled to Great Britain. You're traveling in the United States in July, then you will meet in Tokyo. The objective is to adopt and to adapt religious principles to be in line with artificial intelligence. You have the floor, gentlemen. The National Council of Human Rights, Your Excellency Ambassador, I have a question. When we are talking about ethics in the field of artificial intelligence, we are talking about ethic and not moral. This is very important. All ulemas in all Muslim countries should know that AI is a reality, a sustainable reality. There is no future without AI. My question is the following. As human rights activists, as ulema, how can we make sure that AI remains a human value and to avoid to turn the AI to be turned into a monster that will eat everyone? I'm going to give the floor to the Honorable Minister about AI challenges. Sheikh Ilyas from Algeria. Hi. Good morning. I think that we need to talk about the weakness of infrastructure. We don't have the right connection. How can we talk about artificial intelligence if the infrastructure is too weak? We need to start by the infrastructure before talking about the artificial intelligence. Hello. What is going first, artificial intelligence or infrastructure? I'm coming back to you. Artificial intelligence today. The artificial intelligence is a big leap forward. Our sister Maymuna has addressed the issue of artificial intelligence in the social and the peace context. I want to talk about the importance of spirituality. If there is any scientific border to limit the abuse of artificial intelligence, like fake news, fake pictures, how can we agree upon a global compact over artificial intelligence that will be signed by everyone? Just to defend mankind, to defend mankind. From a religious standpoint, how can the machine replace the imam or the teachers in the religious environment?
إلى وقت كثير، وأنا الآن أذهب أيضا إلى الأخت كريمة من المغرب.
Now I'm going to give the floor to my dear sister Kalima from Morocco. Mrs. Karima, you have the floor for Morocco. Kamila Noor Essari, I'm professor of religious history, University of Morocco. Peace be upon you. The speaker is reading a piece of poetry. This is a piece of poetry read by the speaker.
إن سرعة انتشار الإنترنت في العالم.
The use of internet has allowed to disseminate the religious content over the world. Over digital platforms, we are talking about two different steps. Disseminating religious knowledge. We have fatwas. Fatwas are going over the borders and who do not respect the religious sovereignty. Now we are talking about artificial intelligence. The electronic fatwa is programmed thanks to the artificial intelligence. Is the digital world is able to prepare a new digital environment in the religious field? Is the digitalization of the religious content has produced a mitigation between the religious communities? Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. Hello. Thank you. Thank you for your introduction. Thank you for the piece of poetry that you have read. Honorable Minister, you were asked many questions about AI and AI challenges. You have the floor, gentlemen. In the name of God, the merciful and the graceful, the speaker is quoting a piece of poetry about ethic. Artificial intelligence is very important. Challenges will have to be taken into account, and we can quote some of them. Among the challenges related to artificial intelligence, we have the decision-taking process. How can we understand the digital world? The question is the following: how to mitigate this bias and using artificial intelligence focusing and based on algorithms and contents. The second challenge is about transparency, because those systems have been designed and shaped with algorithms. What is the content of those algorithms and what's the quality of those data? Each time we are coming back to the design of AI. The privacy and confidentiality as far as data are involved. Artificial intelligence contains a lot of application, and one of the application relies on reading the face of the students to determine if the student has well understood the lecture, of if sometime students are a little bit left behind, pupils. So we have these personal features We also have the accountability when we're talking about a decision about teaching, farming, and health. Is the machine able to take this into consideration? Who should be held accountable if there is a mistake? This is a real challenge from an ethical point of view. There is another dimension. What can we leave to the machine? What should be banned for the machine? What should be performed by the machine by abiding by some sort of a charter of conduct, a charter of ethic. To do so, we need to have a consensus and understanding between us to determine the area that should not be tackled by the machine, because this is a question of the border, of the frontier, of the limit of the decision-taking process. I can wrap up my delivery by addressing the issue of security. We need to work in a very steady manner to highlight and to address this challenge. Just to answer some questions, Mrs. Muna, why are we talking about artificial intelligence given the fact that many problems are affecting the daily life of people, vital problems of people? And I would like to tell to my sister, I have led a survey, a research about AI to work upon the underground water. And in this country, we have many places where we have underground water. So we need to be realistic. The machine can assist us. The machine can even speed up the process of processing water. You know that a water shortage is a major challenge. AI is supporting us with satellite maps to identify areas where we have underground water. We need to join this feeling, this empathy with problems and issues and plagues affecting the daily life of the most vulnerable communities, and to take into consideration how the artificial intelligence can help us to address those issues. You have also elaborated on the ethic and the moral. We have more than 160 papers to establish, to implement guidelines on how to use artificial intelligence in a way that would be ethic-friendly, taking into consideration the privacy. Just to answer the call of His Excellency, the Secretary General, it's a duty to contribute, and the UAE is much involved in contributing to implement ethic and moral principles to frame and to process the work of the machine. Thank you. Thank you very much, Honorable Minister, for your great delivery. The tangible example regarding the underground water with AI by using AI and satellite maps. Your Excellency, Secretary General, we have heard a call for emergency to build an international charter that will be signed by all parties to guarantee the ethic and to pave the way to the next stage, as our sister from Morocco has highlighted this point. Gentlemen, you have the floor. First and foremost, I would like to highlight that each time we have facing a new challenge for mankind, we always start by having the right behavior. As Holy Quran said, we don't know what is ahead. We don't know what is good or bad for us sometimes. Each time we are a little bit confused, we need to come back to Allah the Almighty. As human nature, we sometimes are involved in conflicts. His Excellency Abdullah Ben Baya has held a meeting with experts from Microsoft and IBM. He has asked many questions. He said that we should not be pessimistic as expressed by different parties. Those parties have made an analogy with insects which are self-destroying themselves. Who is accountable of the negative impact of this technology and how this technology may affect the human behavior, and how can we avoid the artificial intelligence challenges, how to address, how to understand this machine, which is sometimes smarter than us, how to address the algorithms. So many points should be taken into consideration. They have been raised by His Excellency Sheikh Abdullah Ben Baya very clearly, with no reserve whatsoever. Following this meeting, CEO of Microsoft and CEO were amazed to see how Muslims were aware regarding this ethical environment and how they were able to question themselves regarding the future of mankind. Dr. Ahmed Senussi was attending one session of this meeting, and they were really amazed by the capacity of Muslims to adapt to new moral principles. The Pope, and they were really impressed when the Sheikh gave his paper regarding artificial intelligence. They were asking many questions, how this Sheikh can understand all those values, how he can address all those concepts. And the Sheikh, our dear Sheikh, gave a piece of poetry to the Vatican. They translated this piece of poetry when he refers how some insects can destroy themselves. Well, I do think that we need to take into consideration both sides. Learning from the AI without being affected by the negative impact of artificial intelligence. A meeting will be held where we will issue a document in Hiroshima in Japan. They thought that AI was representing many challenges that could be compared to a nuclear bomb. That's why we need to be very cautious regarding the use of AI. Some rules will have to be implemented. Those rules must be adapted, and with legal support from the Honorable Minister, because he's the one taking decisions. But we are optimistic.
وهذه السياسات شكرا.
Sometimes we do ignore some positive areas. Those policies which are designed by political leaders, you should rely on the wisdom of ulemas and civil society. We must talk about a partnership.
The minister was really very practical, addressing some of the problem or issue that you raised. Do you have any response to this?
Alors, moi, je viens.
Well, I'm coming from an area where you can spend 1 week to speak to your mother because there is no network to call. I'm coming from an area when you can spend 1 week without being able to load your telephone because there is a power shutdown. I am a bit concerned or curious to know how can artificial intelligence is working without the access to internet. I am very lucky because in my region there is no road. We can only access to my region only with humanitarian flight. I can get news from my mother who had to travel to Ouagadougou for security matters. I had the opportunity to work in an NGO where the access to satellite is very expensive. That's why I'm a bit curious how many efforts should be put forward to implement and to work artificial intelligence in this particular area. I am quite happy to learn that artificial intelligence can solve 1 liter 3 or purchase 1 liter of dirty water, 3,000 of French. If artificial intelligence is as not as you say, well, praise be the Lord. I'm very happy. So I do hope to receive you in Burkina Faso and to help us to have water thanks to artificial intelligence. But please understand my concern. We have some very important emergencies, and this is something which is our priorities. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for addressing those issues. This is very important to take into consideration the environment in which we're living. With no further ado, the organizers said that we need to wrap up the session. To do so, we are going to stick to the time imparted. I'm going to take the last intervention from Dr. Jihan Kadir. 1 minute, please. Jihan Kadir, you have the floor. We want to put forward women's voice. Peace be upon you. Assalamu alaikum. Praise be the Lord. My deepest respect to the Honorable Minister. I would like to express my gratitude for giving me the opportunity to take the floor. I'll be as brief as possible. I have a question. I'm a university professor, PhD in law. I'm a member of the Academic Federation of Researchers in Mauritania. I would like to ask a question to the Honorable Minister in charge of AI. As my sister Maimouna, she elaborated about important problems in Africa. I would like to ask you a question about the applications programmed in the AI to find the solutions on the problems affecting Africa and in Mauritania can be used to find a problem to these problems affecting Africa in general and in particular how to disseminate peace in Africa. Civil unrest, how to use AI in order to enforce peace and humanitarian aid, how the artificial intelligence can be used to change the game in Africa. Your Excellencies, let's come back to the panelist, Dr. Hassin Abul Hassain, journalist from Al-Ahram, the Egyptian newspaper, for a question maybe. Peace be upon you. Assalamu alaikum. And NASA has a banner in the entrance. It's a total trust to data. The New York Times has held a meeting with a robot from Microsoft, and the robot from Microsoft was wishing to become a human being, to have power and to handle pandemics and to handle arms exchanges. Innovative. Let's not remain passive. We need to adapt. We need to be prepared. To face those challenges. And in the Arabic world, in Africa in particular, we are some sort of in a situation of resignation regarding the development going on. Thank you. My question now? The Abu Dhabi Forum for Peace has assigned the Charter of Rome on ethics about AI. It's a very important finding from the forum. What are the next approaches, the operational approaches, the tangible approaches that should take into account the ethic environment? Thank you. Thank you, Judge Haidari. You have 30 seconds. Thanks. Peace be upon you. My question about remote distance learning, how this can impact the shaping of the student rather than moving him away from education, because there is a gap, there is a lack. There is a problem of absenteeism of students to learn one from the other. Thank you very much. You are a real judge, honorable judge. Your Excellency Mansour Sy, my brother Mansour Sy. You have 30 seconds, Mansour.
You're gonna lose it.
No,
Technology did not help you, Mansour.
الحمد لله الذي بنعمته وجلاله تتم الصالحات.
Peace be upon you, peace be upon the Prophet, his family and his companions. God bless you all.
ما في ميمونة.
My friend Maimouna has talked in France. She said that we need to join actions and words. We have an NGO called the Islamic Bank for Development, which is in line with the Holy Quran statement. I was in charge of the technical cooperation. We have funded many projects in Burkina Faso with the Islamic Bank for Development. I could even provide. I would like to ask this sister to get in touch with the Islamic Bank for Development. Many things have been done. Many grants and scholarships have been done. But she should get in touch with the Islamic Bank. And by the way, His Excellency Abdullah Ben Baya knows perfectly this institution. And we have managed to achieve those operations. The Islamic Bank of Development has done many things for Burkina Faso.
Thank you so much. And I want to also convey the thanks from Maimuna to you.
We don't have time, so otherwise you want to do it directly. Now, Ma'ali Wazir, we're going to close the session with His Excellency the Minister and then His Excellency the General Secretary of the Forum. أسئلة كثيرة، اهتمام كبير بالموضوع.
This topic is very interesting. Thank you. Thank you very much. Many questions. Some questions will require hours of exchanges, but I would like to shed light on some elements regarding infrastructures as it has been addressed by some imams. It is very important to talk about infrastructures, but we can not disregard and dismiss other issues. We need to carry on working on infrastructures. This fourth revolution, the AI, how artificial intelligence can have an impact on the spiritual environment. Has the Excellency, the Secretary General, AI can foster and strengthen spirituality. Please let me tell you that Quranic schools and traditional education can leverage his methodology and broaden this kind of teaching over the world by giving enough technical support. We can have a content translated in all languages. So the revolution conveys many assets, but we need to be very aware, to be well aware regarding the setbacks and drawbacks of this revolution. We have talked about research, especially on food security and farming. Artificial intelligence can have a very positive impact on improving productivity, especially in combating and fighting against fire, and how we can have a better farming yield, improve farming yield. We need to optimize the use of AI in a steady manner, in a very realistic way, taking into consideration our particularities in Africa. Your Excellency Secretary General, we are calling upon imams, scholars, and sheikh to pay their share to this operation. God, praise be the Lord, the Almighty. We have a framework working on this contribution to a debate about the ethic and the use of AI. We need their support to learn from AI and to design the rules that will frame the use of the AI. Your Excellency Secretary General, Mr. Mahfoud. Let me come back on a couple of points which have been raised by the attendees. I'm sorry, I just wanted to stress different points. First and foremost, artificial intelligence is gathering many smart people who are going to make this machine smart, with a direct direction to good or evil. If the system is programmed in a while you are providing an advocacy for peace for centuries, then the system will lie. We need to take this into consideration. Programming relies on what is given by the computer engineer. It's not an exact science. We are experts to face ideologies. I think that this machine is not going to surpass our intellectual capacities. Programming this machine to support mankind, to have a better future, and not to kill innocents or to have more disputes and discrepancy between peoples. We are going to work and work again and His Excellency Doctor will help us to work upon the authenticity of this programming and this machine. We have many universal values, common understanding ground that should not be affected by space and time and human divergence. We have fixed pillars which are of great help. Those pillars should be onboarded in the life of each human being. Those values are here in all the prophets' statements. The values are about logic.
What's coming, but we need to deal with it. لا نستطيع أن نمنع ما هو قادم ولكننا سنتعلم.
We need to handle and manage the future. We can not fight against the future. We need to adapt this new technological environment for the good sake of mankind, for the future to be better for the global community. We are on the same boat and we need to help each other. Thank you very much, Secretary General. We are reaching the end of this session. Before a month ago, I was watching a show on CNN, a very great show called 360 with a very important journalist, Anderson Cooper. It's a great show on CNN. CNN presented a project to students of California, Berkeley. They asked the students to design a program coming from artificial intelligence for a robot, a machine to present the news. They got inspired from the personality of this journalist, the anchorman. They analyzed the news, and after 5 minutes, they showed the same journalist saying that what you've seen on TV was not myself, it's only AI. I am the real anchorman. So they managed to broadcast a show with AI, a fully digital show. Of course, many challenges about religion, about ethics to optimize AI without compromising religious values. Please allow me to thank all the speakers, His Excellency, the Honorable Minister, the Secretary General, and my sister Maimouna. Thank you. Thanks to all of you for your great inputs. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thanks. End of the session.
Hello, dear guests. We're now going to close this